You've been told to find your power. You've read the books, listened to the podcasts, maybe even sat in the seminars. They all sing the same chorus: unleash your potential. Step into your greatness. Be the hero of your own story. But what if it isn't working? What if, after all the affirmations and the relentless positive thinking, you just feel stuck? What if, beneath the surface, there's a quiet, persistent hum of anxiety? A strange tendency to sabotage your own success? A chilling sense that you're living behind a mask and you're starting to forget the face you were born with? This isn't a sign that you're broken. It's a sign you've been looking in the wrong direction. We're told to run toward the light, to focus only on our strengths, our virtues, our highest selves. But here's the paradox, the beautiful and terrifying secret. What if your greatest power, the most potent and authentic force you possess, isn't in the light at all? What if it's buried in the one place you've been taught to fear, the one place you dare not look? This is a map into the psychological underworld, a journey into the shadows of your own psyche. Because confronting the darkness within isn't a path to ruin. It is the only path to a true, unshakable self. We're going to explore the work of the great psychologist Carl Jung, not as a dry academic exercise, but as a living, breathing process of transformation. A process that promises not an easy life, but an authentic one. So, if you're tired of the surface-level fixes, if you are ready for a profound change, a true rebirth, then your journey begins now. Let's be honest about the feeling, powerlessness. It doesn't always roar. Most of the time it whispers. It's the project you know you should finish, but a million distractions bloom in its place. It's the promotion you deserve, but the words to ask for it die on your tongue. It's the hard conversation you need to have in your relationship, but you swallow it down and smile, preserving a fragile peace. It's the nagging voice of the imposter, the one that whispers, "Any minute now, they're going to find out you're a fraud." This feeling isn't a mystery, it has a name. In Jungian thought, this is the domain of the persona. The persona is the social mask you wear. It's the curated collection of roles you play to survive in the world. The good employee, the supportive friend, the responsible parent, the easygoing partner. We start building these masks in childhood. We learn with brutal speed which parts of us will be met with approval and which will be met with punishment, shame, or indifference. We learn that being quiet gets us praise, so we muzzle our boisterousness. We learn that being agreeable makes us popular, so we bury our honest dissent. We learn that showing vulnerability gets us hurt, so we build a fortress of competence and control. This mask isn't evil. It's a necessary tool for social navigation. The problem starts when the mask fuses to the skin, when we forget we are only playing a role, when we mistake the performance for our actual identity. This is the invisible cage. You've spent so much energy curating this perfect, acceptable version of yourself that you've systematically walled off the vast, messy, and powerful wilderness of your true nature. Think about the sheer exhaustion of it all, the constant performance, the hyper-vigilance, making sure no unapproved thoughts or feelings slip through the cracks. You become a carefully managed brand, not a human being. And this is the source of that deep, gnawing inauthenticity. You feel like a stranger in your own life because, in a very real sense, you are. You have exiled the parts of you that don't fit the script. The anger, the ambition, the wild creativity, the profound sadness, the unapologetic desire. You pushed them down, locked them away, and pretended they didn't exist. But here's the crucial truth. What is suppressed does not disappear. It festers. It gathers energy in the dark. The power you feel you lack hasn't vanished. You simply handed it over to the parts of yourself you refuse to acknowledge. Your powerlessness is a direct consequence of this inner civil war. You are a house divided against itself. And that feeling of being stuck, of self-sabotage, of being pulled by strings you can't see, that is the sound of your disowned self, rattling the bars of its cage. It wants to be seen. It demands to be heard. And the only way out is to turn around, take a deep breath, and walk toward the noise. If the persona is the polished mask we show the world, the shadow is everything the mask is designed to hide. When we hear the word shadow, our minds leap to evil, to darkness, to the sinister. And yes, the shadow does contain our flaws, our envy, our rage, our greed, our shame. But that is a dangerously incomplete picture. The shadow, as Carl Jung defined it, is the unconscious vault for everything we have disowned about ourselves. It's all the parts of our personality that our conscious ego rejected, often because they didn't fit the script written by our family, our culture, or our own self-image. Imagine your psyche is a vast, old house. The persona is the manicured front lawn and the pristine, guest-ready living room. Everything is orderly, acceptable, respectable. The shadow is the locked basement, the overgrown woods behind the property, the dusty, forgotten attic. We've been taught this part of the estate is dangerous, a place of shame we must never, ever visit. So we keep the door bolted. But what's really in there? Yes, the things we fear, our capacity for cruelty, our pettiness, our deepest insecurities. But locked away in that same darkness is so much more. Your untamed creativity that was dismissed as impractical. Your raw ambition that was condemned as arrogant. Your righteous anger that was labeled hysterical. Your deep sensitivity that was mocked as weakness. Your childlike playfulness that was told to grow up. The shadow isn't evil. It's just primitive, instinctual, unfiltered. It is the untamed wilderness of your soul. And in that wilderness lies a staggering source of vitality, creativity, and power. The very energy you feel is missing from your life is trapped in the shadow. Jung called this the golden shadow, the repository of our most precious undeveloped potentials that we were too afraid to own. Have you ever deeply admired a quality in someone else? Their courage, their artistic freedom, their unapologetic confidence, and thought to yourself, with a little pang of envy, I could never be like that. That feeling is a powerful clue. You're likely seeing a projection of your own golden shadow. You're seeing a quality that exists inside you, dormant, waiting to be claimed. This shadow gets made by us, for us, as a survival tool. As children, we instinctively adapt to get love and avoid abandonment. If expressing anger got us punished, we learn anger is bad and push it into the shadow. If failing got us shamed, we learn imperfection is unacceptable and push it into the shadow. The process continues into adulthood as we bend to the pressures of society. We become, as Jung would say, one-sided. We identify only with our good qualities and become terrified of our bad ones. But the shadow doesn't stay locked away quietly. It leaks. It projects. Have you ever had a wildly intense emotional reaction to a flaw in someone else? That person who is so arrogant or so lazy or so needy and just drives you insane? According to Jung, when we feel such a powerful emotional trigger, we are often seeing our own unacknowledged shadow reflected back at us. He famously said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." That irritation is a homing beacon, pointing directly to a disowned part of you. The shadow also erupts in moments of crisis, when our conscious mind loses its grip. It can manifest as a sudden, inexplicable rage, a bout of deep depression, a self-destructive habit, a pattern of sabotage that ruins our best efforts. Until you make the unconscious conscious, Jung warned, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The journey into this underworld, then, is not an act of self-punishment. It is the ultimate act of self-rescue. It is the process of retrieving the lost, exiled parts of yourself so you can finally become whole. It's about opening that locked door, not to be consumed by the darkness, but to reclaim the treasure hidden within it. This is where theory gets its hands dirty. The descent into your psychological underworld is not a comfortable process. It is, as Jung described it, a harrowing stage. It requires courage, humility, and a willingness to sit with profound discomfort. This is the part of the journey where most people turn back. They choose the familiar prison of the persona over the frightening freedom of the unknown. But if you're still here, it means a part of you is ready. You're ready to stop running. This descent is an active process often called shadow work. It is the compassionate exploration of your inner darkness. These are the first steps into that terrain. Step 1. Hunt your projections. Your projections are the gateways to your shadow. They are the moments you see your own unacknowledged self in others. For the next week, become a detective of your own judgments. Carry a notebook or use a phone. Every time you have a strong emotional reaction, positive or negative to someone, stop. Document it. Who triggered you? A coworker, a celebrity, a character in a film? What specific quality in them provokes such a powerful response? Their arrogance, their victimhood, their effortless confidence, their laziness? Be brutally honest. Now, here is the question that turns the key in the lock. Where in my own life, in my history, have I expressed this same quality even in a small way? Or, where have I desperately wanted to but stopped myself? Intensely irritated by a colleague who constantly seeks attention. Your judgment is swift. They are so needy. Now turn the lens inward. Ask yourself, is there a part of me that craves validation? A part that feels unseen and longs for attention, but I've judged that need as weak and buried it? Perhaps your persona is the hyper-competent loner who needs nothing from anyone. Your colleague's behavior is triggering because it's an echo of a need you have disowned in yourself. This isn't about condoning their actions, it's about using your reaction as a mirror. When you take ownership of that disowned part, the emotional charge begins to fade. You're less triggered by others because you're no longer at war with yourself. Step 2. Confess to your journal. The persona cannot survive the unflinching gaze of a private page. Journaling is perhaps the most powerful tool for this work. It creates a sanctuary where you can be utterly honest without fear of judgment. This isn't a Dear Diary exercise. This is a psychological excavation. Get a dedicated journal. Commit to 15 minutes a day. Don't worry about grammar, just write. To guide you, use these prompts. Don't just think about them, write them out. What am I most afraid of other people discovering about me? What secrets am I keeping, even from myself? What qualities in others make me the most envious? What does this say about my own golden shadow? When do I feel like a fraud? What am I afraid will be found out? Describe a time I felt deep shame. What was the core belief about myself in that moment? What lies do I tell, big and small? What am I trying to protect? If I could live one day without any fear of judgment, what would I do? What would I say? Who would I be? The answers are the breadcrumbs leading you straight to the heart of your shadow. Do not judge what comes up. Your only job is to witness it, to bring it from the darkness of the unconscious into the light of your awareness. Step 3. Follow the echoes. Emotional triggers are not random annoyances. They are signposts. They are the raw nerves of your psyche, showing you exactly where the unhealed wounds are. From now on, when you feel that disproportionate emotional reaction, a surge of anger, a wave of shame, a pit of anxiety, don't numb it, don't distract yourself. See it as a message from your deeper self. Pause, breathe, and ask, what is this really about? Let's say a casual comment feels like a searing criticism, and you feel a hot flash of shame. The trigger isn't just their words. The trigger is tapping into a much deeper belief, likely formed long ago. A belief that you are not good enough or fundamentally flawed. Follow that feeling. Where have you felt it before? In childhood? In a past relationship? The trigger is just the entry point into a much deeper story. By developing a habit of introspective curiosity instead of reactive defense, You begin to dismantle the power of your triggers. You are no longer their victim. You become their student. Each trigger becomes an opportunity for healing. This is difficult, demanding work. But it is the only work that leads to authentic power, the alchemical work of turning lead into gold. If you feel that stir of recognition, then subscribe. We explore these depths together. And I want to hear from you. Share in the comments one thing you're just beginning to understand about your own shadow. You don't need to share your deepest secrets. Simply naming a part of the journey, I'm starting to see my projections, or I'm realizing how much I fear judgment, can be incredibly powerful. Your story matters, because in sharing it, we realize we are not alone in this underworld. So, you've taken the first steps. You've begun to hunt your projections, to confess to your journal, to follow the echoes. You have opened the door to the psychological underworld. Now comes the most crucial part of the journey: integration. This is not a battle to the death. The goal of shadow work is not to destroy your dark side. To do so would be to destroy a part of your own soul. The goal is to integrate it, to bring the shadow into consciousness, acknowledge it, understand its needs, and then consciously choose how to relate to its energy. It's the difference between being dragged by a wild horse and learning how to ride it. The power of the horse doesn't diminish. Instead, it becomes yours to direct. Every aspect of your shadow has a mature and an immature expression. In its immature, unconscious form, it is destructive. When integrated and matured by conscious awareness, it becomes a strength. Let's look at anger. In its immature shadow form, it's a destructive force. It festers as resentment, leaks out as sarcasm, or explodes in uncontrolled rage. You might have pushed anger into your shadow because you were taught it was bad or unprofessional. So you smile when you're seething. You say, "It's fine," when it's not. Integration begins by acknowledging the anger, allowing yourself to feel it without judging it or immediately acting on it. You ask it questions. What are you trying to protect? What boundary has been crossed? As you listen, you begin to transform it. Integrated anger isn't rage. Integrated anger is the clean, sharp energy of a boundary. It is the courage to say no. It is the fuel for justice. It is the passion that drives you to fight for what is right. By integrating your anger, you don't become an angry person. You become a powerful, clear, and boundaried person. Now consider fear. In its shadow form, fear is paralyzing. It's chronic anxiety, procrastination, a life lived in a tiny, suffocating comfort zone. We're taught to be fearless, so we deny our fear and then wonder why we're so stuck. Integration of fear doesn't mean becoming fearless. That's a myth. It means cultivating courage, which is the willingness to act despite the fear. You acknowledge it. You say, "I see you. I feel you. You are trying to keep me safe. Thank you." Then you assess the situation with your conscious mind. Is this a rational fear protecting you from real danger? Or is it an old ghost, a programmed fear holding you back from growth? Integrated fear becomes prudence, the ability to wisely assess risk. It becomes empathy for the fears of others, and most importantly, it becomes the foundation of courage. You reclaim the energy that was being consumed by anxiety and reinvest it into brave action. This process of wrestling with our demons naturally leads to a deeper layer of the psyche. Jung spoke of the anima and the animus, the inner feminine in a man and the inner masculine in a woman. Encountering them is about integrating the qualities of our other side, leading to greater psychological balance. A man integrating his anima connects with his capacity for empathy and intuition. A woman integrating her animus connects with her capacity for logic and assertiveness. This is not about gender roles, it's about psychological wholeness. It is the alchemical union of opposites within your own soul. The wrestling match with your demons ultimately gives way to a sacred marriage within. The journey into the underworld is not an endless fall. There is an emergence. But the person who comes out is not the same one who went in. Something has been fundamentally remade. This culmination leads to the birth of a new center of the personality. Jung called this center the self. It is critical to understand the self is not the ego. The ego is your conscious identity, the I you think you are. Before the journey, the ego is the frantic, insecure king of a tiny, well-lit island, terrified of the vast, dark ocean surrounding it. After the journey, the ego is humbled. It realizes it is not the center of the universe, but a servant to something much larger and wiser, the self. The self is the archetype of wholeness. It is the totality of your psyche, conscious and unconscious, light and dark, persona and shadow, all held in a living balance. What does it feel like to live from the self? It's not a state of perpetual bliss. That's an ego fantasy. It is a state of profound authenticity and unshakable resilience. It feels like wholeness. You no longer feel like a collection of warring parts. You are one containing multitudes. You can be both strong and vulnerable, compassionate and fierce. You stop seeing life in rigid binaries of good and bad and begin to hold the tension of opposites. You have made peace with your own contradictions. It feels like authenticity. The exhausting performance of the persona falls away. You say what you mean and mean what you say. Your inner reality and your outer expression become one. There's a quiet confidence that comes from no longer being afraid of being found out. You are what you are, and that is enough. It feels like resilience. When you have faced the darkest parts of yourself, the external world loses much of its power to intimidate you. Criticism and failure no longer threaten to shatter your identity, because your identity is no longer built on a fragile, perfect image. It is forged in the fires of self-knowledge. You know your own darkness, so you are less afraid of the darkness in the world. And finally, it feels like purpose. When you are no longer wasting enormous energy suppressing your shadow, that energy is freed for creative, meaningful work. You discover that the very things you once judged as your greatest weaknesses are often the source of your greatest gifts. This emergence is not a final destination. Individuation is a lifelong process. Life will inevitably send you back down into the depths. But you are no longer a terrified traveler. You have the map. You have the tools. You know the way. You have earned your power not by seeking the light, but by having the courage to carry a lantern into your own darkness. We began with a question. What if your power is buried in the one place you're afraid to look? We've traveled from the polished prison of the persona to the wild landscape of the shadow. We have seen that powerlessness is a symptom of inner division, and that true strength is born from integration. The path isn't easy. It demands we confront the ghosts of ourselves we see in others. It demands we listen to our triggers. It demands we take ownership of everything we have long denied. The ultimate reward is not perfection, but wholeness. The emergence of the true self, an authentic core that can navigate life with a quiet power. Carl Jung famously said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." The power you've been seeking isn't in another book, another seminar, or another person's approval. It has been inside you all along, waiting in the shadows, waiting for you to be brave enough to turn around and come home.